Um, as you all know, hopefully, and if you don't, the Thrive Performance Group is all about providing organizations with the resources that they need to achieve growth and success, which is why we have this series. We have experts being brought to you so that you can learn everything that you need in order to help your business grow and thrive as best as it can. Next week's topic is going to be how can I sell right now with just email? And this week we have our guest speaker, which I will let Grant introduce.
All right. We're lucky to have a good friend here, Lietzau from PSA Insurance. He spent most of his career, actually all of his career, in the insurance space, so he knows it inside and out, and he knows the different risks that commercial businesses face. So he's going to give us a little overview on that and how insurance can really help protect your business and make sure that you're aware of anything that could come about. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nickel.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nickel Lietzau. I'm with PSA Insurance. I hope first, thank you for the opportunity to talk today. It's been a great opportunity, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Usually when someone's talking to their insurance agent, it's the worst day of their week or their month, so thank you for joining. My name is Nickel Lietzau. Nickel is a nickname. My given name is Albert Lietzau V. I was coined at a young age Nickel. And I also have an Albert VI as my son, and my dad's Albert IV. So we try to keep things as confusing as we can around here. I did work at a company that my father and grandfather had owned for the past 30 years called H.U. Dove and Company, which you'll see on my LinkedIn profile if you happen to go there. But we merged with PSA Insurance right in the middle of this global pandemic. But you'll see some more press in the coming weeks about that merger. Today's agenda, we're going to go fast because insurance is complicated, but feel free to contact me directly offline. Happy to answer any specific questions. We'll share a little bit about what PSA does, what is risk, and how do we deal with it, specifically through insurance, and then we'll answer some questions at the end. PSA Insurance is a top 100 broker in the country, right here in Hunt Valley, Maryland. We have 98% client retention, which is one of the best in the industry. Over 170 employees with practices not only on the commercial insurance space, but also employee benefits, as well as your personal insurance, what you might buy for yourself, homeowners, auto insurance, that sort of thing. We like to say that we out-local the national firms and out-national the local firms. That just means we've got a lot of resources that the mega brokers might have, but we bring a lot of attention and care that only a local broker can provide. And with a lot of consolidation, there are fewer and fewer folks that can do what we do. So what are we talking about today? Risky business. Risk is everywhere. You've got risk getting out of bed. You've got risk taking a shower. You've got risk getting in your car. 3 ways to deal with risk. You can avoid it, you can mitigate it, or you can transfer it. Risk avoidance just says don't do it. We're not going to offer that service. We're not going to make that product. In today's environment, we're going to say, I'm just not going to go out into public, into restaurants and shops. That's risk avoidance. Risk mitigation. I'm still going to do that thing, but just do it as safely as possible. In today's world, that means I'm going to go out in public, but I'm going to wear a mask. Other examples might include wearing a seatbelt, wearing a harness if you're working on a roof, wearing a hard hat, or in the service industry, having limitations or hold harmless agreements built into your contracts. And then risk transfer. Risk transfer is mostly known as insurance. I'm going to pay a specific known amount of money, your premium, in case that risky thing turns into a real problem. The insurance company accepts that risk and will pay out if there's a claim. Take your home, for example. I'm going to pay X number of dollars per year. If it burns down, the insurance company will rebuild it. Safety first. Every business has some sort of risk, but the insurance companies incentivize you to stay safe. More importantly, though, you want to stay safe because it's the right thing to do for your employees, your customers. At PSA, we take an A to Z approach to utilizing safety. All the services you see on the screen right now are what we bring to the table when we're talking about safety. All right, so what is insurance? Insurance can address a whole host of things. This is a very high level, and frankly, there are books written on each of these bullet points. Very dry, boring books. But let's narrow it down to what you might see for a typical small business. Here's a short list of what a small business probably is buying. They might check all the boxes. They might check some of the boxes. And small businesses could be nonprofits or other entities as well. But remember, most insurance is optional. No one's forcing you to buy many of these coverages. That being said, it's good business practice to do so. For example, we were working with a client that didn't have a part of a directors and officers policy called employment practices liability. And then the following year, they received a certified letter in the mail, which was a lawsuit from a former employee for a workplace discrimination incident that had taken place when they worked there a few years back. Had they not purchased that insurance, they would have spent tens of thousands of dollars in attorney fees protecting themselves. So while you're not forced to buy most of these, it's good business practice to at least consider them. First kind of insurance that you actually do have to buy if you have employees is called workers' compensation. You don't have a choice. Every state mandates that you purchase workers' compensation insurance if you have employees. Every state is different. So if you have employees living in another state or you're crossing state lines to do work, check to make sure that you're covered. If you're working for yourself, if you're a sole proprietor, or if you're the business owner, but you have other employees, you, the business owner or the sole proprietor, can say, I don't want to cover myself for workers' compensation insurance. I'll just let my healthcare insurance take care of it on the job. That being said, many business owners and sole proprietors do elect to cover themselves for workers' comp because it will pay for lost wages if you are truly hurt on the job and are out of work. Additionally, if you employ subcontractors, be sure that you build into your contracts that they maintain their own workers' comp insurance. If you don't, you will have to pay for their workers' comp insurance. When you build into that contract, make sure you also collect their certificate of insurance, which is a standardized industry form that is just showing proof of insurance.
Nico, can I ask you a question real quick?
Go ahead, fire away.
So for the subcontractors that are working on a 1099, if they don't have, you just said that if they don't have workers' comp, I would have to cover it for a subcontractor. What if that subcontractor is also a sole proprietor or a business owner?
Every insurance company is different, so that may be a case-by-case basis. That could be an exception. We've also seen insurance companies say they're working for you. The law says that you have to have work comp, so it's a case-by-case basis. I can certainly talk to you offline and see if that's something you're worried about, but you're probably okay because you're both sole proprietors, and the law is understanding to say you're both sole proprietors, therefore you don't need it.
Thank you.
Yeah. General liability, products liability, and completed operations are all part of a generic commercial general liability. In our world, we use a lot of acronyms, so CGL or GL. It's standard for businesses to carry general liability. Premiums can start as low as $250, but obviously the larger your business, the larger those premiums can get. General liability covers you for slips and falls. Bodily injury is actually people being hurt. Personal and advertising injury is more disparagement. And then medical payments, if somebody does get hurt, it provides some coverage for you to protect them. Products liability is when you make a product and put it out into the marketplace. If you're making watches or necklaces and somebody chokes on that watch or necklace, they're going to say your product caused me damage, therefore you have a product's liability. Completed operation is liability that for work you've done for a third party. This is, think of a contractor putting the roof on your house. If he finishes the job and then a week later there's a hole in your roof because he did shoddy work, that's a completed operations claim. For those of you in the service industry that are experts in the field or offering a professional service to somebody, completed operations does not include that. That will come on a later slide called errors and omissions or professional liability. A big one these days is cyber liability. 60% of small businesses that suffer cyber attack will go out of business within 6 months. Sadly, that we're seeing cyber insurance claims on the rise. The average price for a small business to clean up after being hacked is almost $700,000. And for any middle market companies you work with or yourself, it's over $1 million in cleanup costs. These are big, expensive claims, and everyone is a target. We recently had 2 clients that got hit with ransomware attacks. It shut down their entire network. The initial losses were estimated at about $90,000 each. And now that we're about a month into those claims, I'm sure we're well over $250,000 in costs. Cyber insurance will cover you for first party and third party liability. First party, think of a car accident. If you're in a car accident, you have to pay to fix your car. That's the first party liability. This is the expenses that you have to bring on for a forensics team to come in and figure out how you got hacked in the first place. There's going to be a PR and crisis communication team set up to help you make sure that your name is still in good order in the marketplace. I'm sure you've all received a letter with saying we're giving you free credit monitoring. Somebody has to pay for that, so that is a response. It's somewhat third party, but you're incurring that cost. Ransomware often will take a computer offline, or mess it up so badly it becomes a brick. So there are actually bricking endorsements that say we're going to replace your hardware. These are all first party things that you have to fix. Not to mention, if you're down for a while, you've got lost business income. So the insurance company will pay for that lost income that you would have otherwise enjoyed over that same time period. There's also reputational damage and that more system restoration. Cyber crime is becoming more and more prevalent these days. Funds transfer fraud, those phishing emails we got from the Nigerian princes have become way more sophisticated. Companies, even as smart as Google, are having people transfer millions of dollars to hackers in Russia and overseas almost every day. And then the third party liability is there was a data breach. I lost my identity. It's your fault. I'm going to sue you. And so the third party part of the policy defends you. You're also going to get hit with regulatory fines and penalties from regulators. There's also defense for that. If you collect any sort of credit card information, there's PCI, the payment card industry, fines and penalties. Not to mention everyone that now has a website or a social media presence now automatically became a publisher. If somebody says that you use their image or plagiarized, there's a media exposure as well. So many sophisticated policies just throw that in. Directors and officers liability. Most often see this in the nonprofit world, but it can be a wise decision for a for-profit entity to carry this as well. That being said, if you ever think about volunteering for a nonprofit board, do not join if it does not have directors and officers insurance. If you do, and that entity is sued, you could become personally liable, and you'll have to defend yourself out of your own pocket. So directors and officers is there to protect the D's and O's, the directors and officers of an organization, for claims for their service as part of that organization. For the nonprofit, it's the claim that the nonprofit isn't doing their mission. if the nonprofit is helping the homeless, but they decide one day to turn around and open an ice cream stand, that's not the mission of the organization. That's not why people donated money. You're going to see a lawsuit for that. Part B of a directors and officers policy is employment practices liability. That claim I talked about earlier was an employment practices liability. This can be purchased as a standalone separate policy, but is often included under directors and officers. This is the defense for any management in employment issues, hiring, firing, harassment, discrimination, all of those things. We're seeing a lot of these claims these days because, frankly, we live in a litigious society. And fiduciary liability, anyone with a 401k plan, 403b plan, you have a fiduciary liability to your employees as trustees or administrators. It's a very inexpensive piece to buy, but should be included as well. Professional liability, here's the errors and omissions, E&O. General liability will, like I said, specifically exclude any professional work you're doing. So if you're putting yourself out there as a professional or an expert, you may want to consider an E&O policy. We had a client who was a consultant for a very specific piece of technology that was on the market, working with doctors' offices. That technology malfunctioned, and she was brought into the lawsuit, even though she only worked to implement the technology. Nevertheless, she did have to defend herself and her practice. So she had, because she purchased E&O insurance, the insurance company was on call and had a panel of lawyers ready to help defend her. And with, $1 million limits in place, she was able to stay afloat without having to put that money out of pocket herself. Other examples include medical malpractice insurance. If you go to a doctor, they all carry medical malpractice. PSA is the largest writer of medical malpractice in the Mid-Atlantic. We have a great expertise in that field. Think of an architect or engineer designing your house or your building. You want to make sure that they have E&O insurance in case the building falls down. Any tech E&O or consulting practice should also consider it. Last piece, in the insurance industry, we have to deal in worst case scenarios. And here's possibly the worst case scenario we can come up with right now: an active shooter situation or a stalking threat. Insurance is generally reactive. If your building burns down, insurance pays to rebuild the building. But with a stalking threat, there's a possibility or threat of something happening. So you still want to protect yourself. These are some of the newest policies to come into the marketplace. It essentially provides a lot of resources and money available to your employees or your victims for the damages that they will incur after a workplace violence active shooter situation. These are obviously the worst claims in the world, but the marketplace is available to handle that. So there you go. These are the very highest level points of insurance that we talk about with our clients. Obviously, that list you saw earlier can get pretty nitty gritty. Everything from bonds to other financial pieces. There are captive insurance arrangements that can be had for self-insurance that makes a lot of sense for people these days. Umbrella insurance is also a key piece to this. Umbrella just sits on top of your liability insurances. It's the best money you can buy in insurance, so buy it over top your homeowner's policy, buy it over top any other commercial policies you have. On that note, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Nickel, appreciate all that great information and you being here today. I got a quick question for you. Obviously there's a lot of information in there. I know you can get a lot of this stuff online. Obviously, I've seen a lot of like the policies you can buy online. What's the benefit to working with a broker as opposed to just going online and buying it yourself?
Jeff, great question. Thank you. I appreciate you asking that. Two things. First, insurance is a contract of adhesion, meaning it's a one-sided contract in favor of the insurance company. What you see is what you get. When you work with an insurance agent, that agent can customize the policy for you. There are endorsements out there, riders, if you will, that can change the policy for better or for worse. If you buy something online, often you don't know what you're getting. We insurance agents actually read all of these insurance policies, so you don't have to. An independent agent also works with multiple insurance companies. So, you can go to Geico, but Geico is only going to give you a Geico policy. We work with dozens and dozens of insurance companies around the country. So I get to shop on your behalf. And unless you want to read all those policies yourself, we find it best that you work with an independent insurance agent to get the best value out there.
Appreciate it. No, that's great. Thanks for explaining, because I know obviously there's a lot of complicated stuff out there, and having somebody on your behalf is certainly a benefit in most industries, but certainly in insurance.
Yep.
Hey, Nicole, I just wanted to ask you, when you're pricing insurance, or even when you're dealing with some with your coverages, your premiums can fluctuate tremendously, and sometimes from year to year. What is it that drives those changes?
Absolutely. Insurance is a marketplace, so we have to go. The insurance companies are dealing with billions of dollars in premium behind the scenes, so that they have investment gains and losses. So sometimes when the markets go down, they've got to charge more money. But insurance companies also buy insurance for your insurance. It's called reinsurance. So think of a hurricane hitting the East Coast, or those wildfires that we saw out west a year or two ago. The insurance companies have to buy insurance in case they have to pay out those billions of dollars to rebuild everybody's house on the East Coast or everybody's house in wine country. So when you see a lot of claims in the insurance industry, you're going to see a lot of premiums going up, because they lost a lot of capital, and they need capital to pay out all the claims. So it's truly a balance sheet issue. We've got to raise capital because we got to pay for claims. So you see that fluctuation in the marketplace.
I got a question. I just want to remind everybody too, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or use the Q&A area. But with everything that's been going on with the pandemic and COVID-19, and obviously, I feel like I have to ask the question, how has that affected the insurance industry? A lot of businesses obviously are trying to figure out where they can cut back costs. Is insurance something to think about, or is that the opposite direction they should go with everything that's going on right now?
Yeah, COVID's an interesting case. We're seeing the insurance industry restrict coverage, which means that directors and officers policy. We've seen a 100% exclusion on coverage for any claims coming out of COVID, anything dealing with COVID-19 on directors and officers renewals this year. So the insurance marketplace is tightening. Frankly, because they think that there are going to be a lot of lawsuits coming down the pike. So insurance may not be something you can rely on. Interesting to note, insurance was not designed to deal with a global pandemic. Insurance was never designed to deal with something that everybody in the world has to deal with. The law of large numbers doesn't account for that. There's not enough premium in the world to pay for everyone's business interruption claim. The insurance industry is designed to respond to specific catastrophic events. Even a hurricane hitting the East Coast only hits the East Coast. There's still premium being collected from across the country. So the insurance industry can't respond to a global pandemic because your premiums would be astronomical otherwise.
So do you not, kind of a follow with that, so because they're not going to respond like that, do you not foresee insurance rates going up post-pandemic or further into the pandemic, or could it still have an effect like that on the insurance industry?
So we are seeing what we call a hardening of the market, which means premiums are going up. It was a result of a lot of things that have happened in past years, as well as the market difficulties. So premiums are actually increasing, and I don't think COVID's actually helping anything. And one of the reasons they're increasing is just, frankly, lawsuits. We live in a litigious society where every lawyer thinks that every insurance company has deep pockets and they're just going to sue the pants off of everybody. Also think of like auto insurance. We're seeing auto insurance go through the roof too, because every fender bender now totals your car. You've got more technology in the bumper of your car than entire cars did 10 years ago. So it's just more expensive to replace cars. The insurance industry has been working with technology and AI to streamline things, make things more efficient and cheaper for people. But frankly, there's just so much flying around in our litigious society that causes the insurance industry to have to respond and pay out millions unnecessarily.
Well, okay. Well, that's good to know. We're getting kind of close to wrapping up. So if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to ask them. Nichols here to answer those questions. And obviously there's his info if you want to reach out to him after this to talk a little bit more one-on-one. But really appreciate it, Nickel, today.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nickel. Appreciate all the knowledge.